Members, good morning. May I call the meeting to order? Well, in the interest of time, I've invited the Secretary and also his team to come in. This is Policy Address 2015, Policy Initiatives of Food and Health Bureau. The administration has given us paper CB2634/1415-01. And I'm sure you've also got the other two copies of the policy address with you. And other members, other legislators have been invited to attend this meeting. And I'll give the floor to the Secretary to brief us on the policy initiatives of Food and Health Bureau in this year's policy address by the CE. Please refer to paper CB2634/01. Secretary, over to you. All right, Chairman, it's up to you. If you want more time for questions, I can skip introduction. Thank you, Secretary. I believe members have already read or heard about the policy initiatives. All right, let's all have 5 minutes each. But of course, I hope you won't spend 4.5 minutes asking questions and reserve very little time for the Secretary because he likes to speak slowly. All right. And Mr. Wong Kwok Hing. Thank you. Chairman, I have two questions for the administration. The first relates to environmental hygiene. In the past couple of years, dengue fever, well, according to the Secretary, has become an indigenous disease in Hong Kong, and we have more Oedipus mosquitoes in Hong Kong. Last year, there were some cases in construction sites of MTR, and then in residents living in public house estates where there are hill slopes nearby are quite worried. So regarding nuisance caused by mosquitoes and the spread of dengue fever, I'd like to know whether you have new initiatives in this year to prevent this disease from spreading. And secondly, the second question relates to food safety. There have been media reports and complaints about selling of food items and even health food products on the internet. Some of them contains medicine or drugs, and some customers have been affected. So what measures do you have? Will you enhance manpower to keep an eye on the online selling of such products, because there is a loophole in food safety in this area. So what is the position of the administration and what measures do you have to tackle this problem? Regarding dengue fever, indeed, there were 3 indigenous cases in Hong Kong. First, it's not that we always have local cases. The last time was 3 or 4 years ago. And usually, patients contracted the disease after visiting overseas. Last year, there were 3 cases, and 2 came from different sources. So that was an alarm for us, and we're worried that perhaps dengue fever will become an indigenous disease here. And our neighbor, Guangdong, had a rather major outbreak of dengue fever last year as well. So the disease could be caught when our citizens visit other places, and if there is proper treatment, that will not spread, because the disease will not spread from human to human directly. Now, if we have two local sources and there was a major outbreak so near, that means there was a source elsewhere. So we are worried as to whether our local mosquitoes has already got the virus, because if yes, it can be carried over to the next generations. So with the 3 cases, in the wake of the 3 cases, we immediately took enforcement action, because if there was some mosquito manifestation in some of the places, the people responsible commit an offense. So we've extended our efforts. Usually, we take action in around March and April before the setting of the wet season. And then our food branch colleagues would chair an interdepartmental working group to crack down on mosquitoes.
And during winter, usually we would ease back on our anti-mosquito measures, because the problem of mosquitoes would not be so serious at that time. And however, after winter, we will resume these measures. Any follow-up? Perhaps the Secretary has not finished. Can you give him another minute or two? I don't think he can address it within a minute or two. Secretary? Mr. Wong also mentioned the use of resources. At the moment, in terms of the FHB, FEHD, and CFS, we would step up coordination work between these units. And in terms of mosquito elimination, we cannot only count on the staff of FEHD. They cannot possibly tackle all the mosquitoes in Hong Kong, so coordination is of great importance. We'll step up our coordination efforts, and with the help of district councils, through education, promotion, and coordination, we would be able to continue our work in eliminating mosquitoes. And I'm very concerned with the relevant work at each district, and thankfully the district councils are very supportive of our work. If we are to apply for extra resources in the new financial year, we will have to look at the situation in the coming year, and if the need arises, we will allocate more resources or redeploy internal resources. So right now, we are focusing our energies on coordination work. In the meeting last week, I forgot to thank our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Lai. They would swap positions in the middle of the month, and I only found out afterwards. So I forgot to welcome our new Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Chair. So, Secretary, you should be very thankful for having such a capable and smart Permanent Secretary. Next, Mr. Kwokaki. Food and environmental hygiene covers a lot of areas. I have 3 questions. First, public markets. The government has decided to stop building new markets in certain districts like Tung Chung and Tin Shui Wai based on the experience from the existing FEHD public markets. So can the government promise to conduct a review by this year? If we don't see any changes, disadvantages districts such as Tin Shui Wai, Yuen Long, and Tung Chung. Well, in Yuen Long, the situation is a bit better. So these are the so-called low-income districts. In these districts, it's very difficult to revive, so to speak, these markets. So does the government have any concrete plans this year? Are you going to conduct any studies? And the second question is about the nutrition and health claims. And nutritional labeling has been implemented for some time, but for the general public, not many understand or know how to make use of these labels. And the government has not stepped up their efforts in terms of promotion, law enforcement, and education. Third, column barrier. And in Taiwan and Sandy Ridge, a plan has been in place, but the government promised that there will be column barrier in all 18 districts, but things have not progressed very smoothly. And for the promotion of Gardens of Remembrance or scattering ashes at sea, there's a lack of promotion. Will the government do more this year on this front? Secretary. Chairman. Whether we need to build new public markets is of great importance. We noticed that new towns such as Tin Shui Wai, Tung Chung, and Tseung Kwan O, there is a lack of street stores. But they do have other markets. Under the housing department, apart from the link, a lot of estates under the housing department do have public markets. So whether or not we need FEHD markets really depends on the existing situation of the districts. And for nutritional labeling, I've been involved in detailed discussions at this panel last year. It's certainly our job to let the public know how they can make good use of nutritional labeling. In terms of law enforcement, we will continue to work hard. And for column barrier, statistically speaking, progress is a little bit slow. This I admit. It's a bit short of our expectation. But we have made some progress, and we'd like to thank the North District Council and Eastern District Council for supporting our plans last year. And for the North District Council, the Sandy Ridge columbarium is rather large in scale. And after it was opened, it was able to help us fill considerable demand. And on Monday or 2 days ago, I went to Tuen Mun District Council, and we consulted the Yuen Long District Council for building a new columbarium. Most district councillors were supportive of this plan. But that said, we still have a lot of work to do and coordinate with the district council on the auxiliary facilities. And after the consultation, we've heard a lot of views which would be helpful in lobbying for new columbaria. And we will be able to work with the Transport and Housing Bureau and let the public know that when the government develops something at a district, we would always have ample transportation facilities and services. Hopefully, this will be passed at the LegCo's Public Works Subcommittee and Finance Committee so that we can come up with new columbaria. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on one point. I mentioned wet markets. The government is always delaying its efforts. Is the government going to conduct any policy studies? The districts we mentioned are disadvantaged districts. If you still use the same logic, then nothing will change. And he didn't say anything about green burial or scattering of ashes at sea. Yesterday, we reported the matter to one of the subcommittees under this panel on public markets. We conducted a review on existing markets. Of course, we did not include new markets under this study. But I believe that some of the results and principles from this study will help us decide whether we will have new markets in certain new towns. I cannot commit to another study at the moment because we are indeed conducting another study right now. But now we have identified certain principles which would help us decide whether or not we need new markets. And in terms of green burial measures, and in the last few years, at the moment, the public is not very used to the idea of green burial, and I'm not very satisfied with the numbers so far. So there are two things we have to do. First, these green burial work, especially scattering of ashes at sea, we can certainly do more, and we have received a lot of views, and we have evaluated these views and see what we can do better in terms of convenience and other factors, so as to encourage the public to adopt green burial. In terms of promotion, we have done a lot of work, including TV commercials, and in the next phase of our work, we will step up our promotion efforts. As you may have noticed, even for TV commercials, the key is to strike sympathy in our audience. So we will identify the right persons for the job. Ms. Starry Lee. And revitalizing public markets is something the public is anticipating. As we mentioned, we don't have enough space and land for public markets, and a lot of public members are of the view that with the right public markets, they can create a lot of employment opportunities and provide more options for the public. Can you tell us the objective of revitalizing public markets? If you only consider it from a food safety, environmental perspective, I don't think we will see any changes. So for the pilot scheme, what are your objectives? Are you going to diversify public markets, or are you going to do it from a food safety and environmental hygiene perspective? And my second question is, how are you going to communicate with all the stakeholders, including our subcommittee members and including these store tenants and all public market stakeholders? Third question is about columbaria. I know that you have done a lot of work in different areas, but I believe it takes time before we will see results. And sometimes members of the public ask me about the progress. They've been waiting for months or even half a year. Can you tell us how long they have to, how much longer they have to wait before they can obtain, they can secure a niche in public columbaria? in terms of public markets, I guess you are referring to a consultancy study on public markets. I've reported the matter to the subcommittee, and the government has already gathered some initial views on the consultancy study, and in 2 or 3 months, the study will be confirmed and announced. And we also promised to the subcommittee that by June, we will table recommendations according to results of the consultancy study on revitalizing public markets. And in terms of positioning of these markets, the consultant pointed out that the positioning of public markets should be to provide fresh food to residents. And as such, the environment of public markets should be neat and clean, and we have to ensure food safety. The positioning should not be too high-end, and another objective would be to revitalize these markets, and the government agrees with this view. And therefore, we asked the consultant to come up with detailed elaborations in the report. So we would not just manage the markets from a law enforcement point of view. Of course, enforcement is always important, but we do have to ensure food safety. But we also introduce other factors in the consideration mix.
As regards communication, as pointed out in the consultant's report, the software is just as important as the hardware. So when it comes to the future management model, various options have been proposed. And we will consider the various proposals by the consultant together with other feasible options mentioned by members yesterday. We will consider all these before we put forward our own ideas. But a very important element is to see how we can enhance the participation of traders and also their sense of responsibility. That is, they should not just rely on enforcement or management. They should be more involved, and they should also take the initiative to enhance the environment of markets. What about columbarium niches? We, as pointed out earlier, we have got columbarium project in the North District with support of the community, assuming that it gets the blessing from LegCo so that we can start works as scheduled. Then by 2020 there will be some relief. But every year we have 40,000 odd demands. If you look at this, we may need more than 10 years to meet all these demands. Mr. Vincent Fang. Thank you, Chairman. The 43 markets and the administration, or rather the 43 streets of hawkers, you have spent $200 million to improve the environment, and I think that's money well spent. The environment has improved, and the streets are widened, and it is now easier for fire engines to negotiate the streets. Of course, I don't want them to use these streets too often, but still the environment is much improved. Well, you have cut about 400 odd stores in your improvement projects. Some hawkers have forfeited their licenses or surrendered their licenses. I want to ensure that there will not be gaps in the streets because that will have a major impact on the viability. So I hope you can ensure that the hawkers don't have to move or be relocated too often. And some hawkers have surrendered their licenses because they are rather old. We've asked whether the licenses can be resold to their assistants. This question I've asked many times. And live poultry, yes, the government has given ex gratia payments many times. What is the direction and the principle? I have heard from the Secretary many times that for the time being there will be no phasing out of live poultry in the market. And there are people who say that we should not import live chickens into Hong Kong. But you have to remember that even the small chicks are imported from the mainland. So it is rather unlikely that we can stop the importation of live poultry from the mainland. I hope we won't have too many such a suspension in the future. It always happens in the festive periods, and we have 3 or 4 occasions a year. So protection to hawkers and revitalization of wet markets. I am a member of that subcommittee. I know that the consultants are working very hard. And it's proposed that 6 to 7 markets can be involved in a trial scheme to try out the improvement measures. If the environment of these markets are improved, I hope that you will not raise the rent until business has improved. Please wait until there is more patronage and more business turnover before you think of any rent increase. And we are going to, the pharmacy legislation is going to receive a second reading today. And even before the bill receives a second reading, you have already issued your guidelines. Is it a usual practice? And you have even started enforcement work. Secretary. First, Mr. Fang, your last question is not within the scope of this panel. Well, you can respond later. Well, there is plenty of time for Mr. Fang to chase after you, Secretary. Improvement of on-street hawking sites. Yes, we have vacated some space or some stores. The priority is to take the opportunity to improve the environment to relieve the congestion there. And if there are vacant stores that can be allocated to other hawkers, in a brainstorming session earlier, we already promised or we already said that it would be done. Who should have priority? Or whether assistance of hawkers there will have priority. We are open-minded on this, but of course there will be it will be subject to some conditions. Please answer the remaining questions as soon as possible. Regarding a live chicken, we are going to commission a consultancy study quite soon to see whether in the long term we really need to supply live poultry. But this is a long answer, so I stop here first. Regarding rent increase mechanism for our markets, I said very clearly yesterday that when we put forward our proposals, in principle, we will also have to discuss the rent adjustment mechanism. Now, I'm not saying that there will be any rent increase, but the mechanism for adjustment will be discussed. Deputy Chairman, it is important that there is inter-bureau coordination when it comes to new policies. The policy address talk about water-friendly activities in West Kowloon. There may be water sports centers. We have a long coastline, and we have got, for instance, fishing raft managed by the Food and Health Bureau. So will water-friendly activities be developed in these fishing raft? Because there are some conflicts here. So will we make use of existing facilities? I'd like to see what the government will do to promote the development of this industry. Mr. Zhang talked about live poultry, live chickens. In our recent communication with the administration, now we will not talk about the a halt or suspension in the supply of young chicks into Hong Kong, and the administration only stopped the supply of live chicken from the mainland. There may be a misunderstanding here. So there is enhanced awareness in food safety in Hong Kong. Every year we have vegetables with pesticides exceeding the limits. The mode of farming on the mainland is very different from our expectations, and they have their own way, and they may not do it according to our legislation. So how are you going to communicate with the mainland so that in the long term we can have stable food supply from the mainland? I'll stop here after 3 questions. Regarding the fishing raft or the fish raft, I don't think I will mix it with water-friendly activities or water-friendly culture, because there the fish is cultured for human consumption. We have various requirements. We have to satisfy safety, fire safety requirements, and the paramount consideration is food safety, and also the health of fish grown there. So I will not take the initiative to link the two. Of course, when it comes to recreational fishing, we'll talk about allowing members of the public to visit the fish culture zone, to do fishing, and to cook fish. They have fish there. For water-friendly culture, well, the people will actually touch water. They may go into the water. This bureau has no intention to use our fish raft for to develop water-friendly culture. And communication of the mainland, we do not have any communication breakdown. For importation of live chicken to Hong Kong, I think our consensus is clear. Sometimes our experts on the two sides may differ in views, but for supply of young chicks, it was quite clear that it was not included in the ban. When we resume the operation of the Changsha Wan wholesale market, will they send their live chicken to Hong Kong on the same day? This is not certain. So even if we have resumed operation of Changsha Wan, well, they have their own consideration or understanding of the arrangements. Food safety and food supply may be in conflict at times. their safety standards may not be identical to that of Hong Kong, but the vegetables supplied to Hong Kong, we require them to satisfy our safety requirements. So if they have an agricultural base registered for supplying vegetables to Hong Kong, if they always reach our requirements, will they be deregistered? That may happen. Then to a certain extent, that may affect stability of supply. But this is a will allow market forces to operate. And we have discussed with mainland authorities and tell us where there is appropriate farmland for us to rent. So that some investors or farmers in Hong Kong may be interested to identify land on the mainland, given that it's difficult to find land in Hong Kong, and then they can have farms that satisfy our requirements.
Next, Dr. Ann Chang. Thank you, Chairman. I'm very happy to read the part on food safety in the policy address. And the government will strive to reduce the levels of reduce the intake of dietary salt and sugars, which is a great thing. Some people told me that it's very hard to buy low sodium food in supermarkets, and recently someone told me that that she would not add salt when she cooks. Sometimes she would use soy sauce, but then soy sauce is also high in sodium, and with the help of a friend, she bought some low-sodium soy sauces, and so I hope the government can do more to promote low-sodium food, especially those food items from the mainland. And different manufacturers from different countries would have different standards on their ingredients or level of sodium. So when these foods are imported to Hong Kong, can we require suppliers or retailers to have consistent food labels? This way the public can easily recognize any harmful ingredients, or they would know what's the healthy level of sodium intake. So we should do more to educate the public. In your paper, you said 34% of the local population aged 55 above suffer from hypertension. In fact, conditions such as stroke, hypertension, and heart disease would lead to a big burden on the government's healthcare system. So my question for the Secretary is, and I've heard about the plan for an agricultural park, which is a great idea. If we are to have an agricultural park, apart from just a few plots of land, can we have more facilities? For instance, can we have some catering facilities, accommodation facilities, so that our young people can experience what life is like at a farm? And I visited some indigenous villages in Hong Kong, and they would sell some local specialties like fruit jam. By selling some agricultural produce, people can really experience around what life is like in a farm. Dr. Chang mentioned the issue of food safety. First of all, I'd like to say that food safety is very important to us. We have been enhancing our standards across the board, and in case of food safety incidents, we are also stepping up our efforts. We will upgrade our food safety laboratory, and in terms of dietary salt and sugar intake, we established an international advisory panel consisting experts from the mainland and overseas. So we are trying to learn the successful experience of other countries in terms of reducing the levels of dietary salt and sugar. And in terms of requirements, in fact, in other countries, usually their priority is not to control the levels of salt and sugar by way of legislation. Usually they would work with the food trades to reduce the levels of salt and sugar in prepackaged foods. We are going to set up a high-level committee very soon, comprising members from different sectors of the society, and people representing consumer interests and so on. And hopefully we can gradually reduce the levels of salt and sugar in food in Hong Kong. And we are looking at different types of foods. We would educate the public and encourage them to use less salt and sugar at home. And we will also encourage restaurants to use less salt and sugar for prepackaged foods such as condiments, drinks, and snacks. We will also do some work with the manufacturers. So the scope is very, very wide, and we will continue our work on this front. And for agricultural development, after announcing our consultation paper, a lot of people are concerned about the agricultural park. But that is not our only area of focus. We will also encourage other types of farming, for example, leisure farming and so on. So I hope this type of farming resort will not become the only type of agricultural development. And we propose setting up a fund to incorporate any type of agricultural development, including high-tech agricultural development and leisure farming. Next, Mr. Ray Chan, please. Thank you, Chairman. I think the part about food safety in this year's policy address looks more like a progress report. A lot of the work had started a year ago or 2 years ago, which is okay. Because if we still have outstanding issues, we should not try to do too much in terms of new initiatives. And for the left, on the issue of rents, can you, for public markets, can you promise not to increase the rents for the next, let's say, year or two? And some members propose installing air conditioners, but we agree that the problem is deeper than that, and we are happy that a consultancy study is being conducted. My general feeling is that the government is trying to put the blame on the mismanagement of stores. And the feeling is that the government already has a conclusion before the study is completed. So I think this scenario is not satisfactory. I think the tenants would really like to know when the rents will go up again. You have chosen 6 markets in urban areas and 1 market in Tsinghua and Kwaichong. Can you introduce more these so-called exemplary markets in the new territories, including the north or the east? And for the issue of waste cooking oil and edible oil, I'd like to talk about the recycling of waste oil. The Bureau said you would enhance your efforts at the source level. So I'd like to know how you can specifically tackle the issue of waste cooking oil at source. And in terms of animal welfare, we've been asking for figures on euthanization. And we've been talking about the control nutrient release program for years and years. And we're now doing it in Yun Long, but still it isn't enough, and we have to wait until we promote it to other districts. Are there any other ways to reduce the number of dogs and cats captured? And in 139B, the control of animal trading, we've been talking about for a long time. So we won't oppose to that. In the paper, you said you will come back to the LegCo this year. We have a lot of items to discuss this year. And even at the Bills Committee, we might not be able to tackle the issue before the summer recess. So what is your plan on this? Secretary, first on the rental adjustment mechanism. In the consultancy study, as Mr. Ray Chen said, the study mentioned that in terms of operation, it's really affected by a few factors. And rent and proactiveness are among the factors. But I don't think the consultant will blame the rents for all the operational problems. There are recommendations on upgrading the software and hardware facilities. So improving the flow of people and operational efficiency can only be achieved by enhancing the hardware and software. And the mechanism to control the increase of rents will be in force until later this year. And after the consultancy study is completed, we will have preliminary recommendations, and we will look at the rent adjustment mechanism at that time and come back to the panel. We will not take action before consulting you. For the 6 exemplary markets, before I announce the government's initial views on the consultancy study, we reserve the right to decide whether or not we will only have 6 exemplary markets. We will look at we will wait for the results of the study, and we will also consult the relevant bureaus and technical departments. And on the recycling of waste cooking oil, we promise to prepare a public consultation paper this year. On the control of waste cooking oil at source, and we will step up monitoring as well. And the specific measures have been shared with you already. We will request all restaurants in Hong Kong to submit, or to they must hand over waste cooking oil to registered recyclers under the Environment Bureau. And together with the Hong Kong Productivity Council, the EPD will facilitate a certification scheme, and when we grant food licenses, we would require that all restaurants must hand over their waste cooking oil to registered recyclers. And the TNR scheme, for that scheme, we do face a lot of challenges. We really want to implement that scheme, but we face a lot of opposition from different districts and the animal trade. So we have to be very careful. But that said, we hope to convince everyone that the TNR trial program is effective. And for CAP 139B, I think within this legislative year, we will table it in front of LegCo.
I think it should be QAA instead of Productivity Council. Thank you for your reminder. Mr. Chen Hanpan. There is little mention of the restriction on formula products. I think, as we all know, there are only two brands of baby formula, much sought after in short supply. And according to a Western doctor, it is one of the brands is no longer in short supply, and there is only one brand left where supply is rather inadequate. So in hospitals of the HA baby formula is given to newborn babies so that they may continue to use that brand upon discharge. So I asked whether the two brands where supply is short be withheld from given to babies. Otherwise, you will put parents or new parents in a difficult position. So I'd like to know whether there is any update on this proposal. And we have also asked about street management. For all streets near wet markets, they are usually more crowded. Traders will even take up pavement space. Pedestrians are forced to walk on the carriageway. In the past, FEHD will use Public Health and Municipal Services Ordinance to prosecute these offenders. But this will not be effective. They might have extended their shopfront by 20 square meters, and yet you only fine them for $300. Are you going to step up action, enforcement action, because people are quite concerned about this subject? Secretary. The ban on taking baby formula out of Hong Kong. We have closely monitored the supply of different brands of baby formula in Hong Kong. At a certain, and then we also did a study to gauge the situation. When we expect a peak demand period, we will do this survey to keep track of the situation. However, they are not going to carry out any trial stress test as we did in the past. We agree that the supply of baby formula in the market has stabilized. However, we are doing some other things. Groups that are for breastfeeding have pointed out, or even the medical sector has pointed out, that there is such a great demand for baby formula because of over-exaggerated claims, health claims and nutrition claims in baby formula ads. And we have started a public consultation on whether such claims should be subject to regulation. I'm sure this will help to a certain extent. And Mr. Chen talked about the practice in hospitals. They have an arrangement of having contracts with suppliers. If a new mother cannot breastfeed due to various reasons, then baby formula would be given to the newborn baby. And when there is a severe shortage of supply of a certain brand in the market, can we rescind the contract with that particular supplier? We have considered this, but it is not easy to determine from a contractual point of view that there is really a breach of contract. Some evidence is required because we cannot just lightly accuse the other party of not able to fulfill the contract. So guidelines will be, or indicators will be included in contracts so that it will be more easier, objectively speaking, to prove that there is violation of contractual terms. This is the last time you to overrun. Regarding occupation of pavement, there are two types. First, by restaurants. Second, by the shop operators. Now we have started. We've been thinking about summary offences tickets to be given out. If this can be done, then it will be more effective. And as for illegal occupation of pavement, we have task force to carry out trial schemes at particular spots, and they've proved to be successful. Where resources permit, we will step up our work in this regard. Thank you. I'm afraid I won't allow you to ask questions because you have exceeded your speaking time. Dr. Kenneth Chen? All right. Myself including, there are 5 more members waiting to ask questions, so I'm going to be very strict with this 5-minute limit. Dr. Helena Wong. A few questions related to food safety. In the panel, we have asked the administration to arrange a visit on the mainland for legislators so that we can understand the operation of registered farms on the mainland that can supply vegetables and live poultry to Hong Kong. But it's been a long time since we raised it. I'd like to know whether there is any progress. I know the Center for Food Safety has worked very hard because of the challenges last year. The government has done a very good job in gatekeeping, but you know, a food incident might be due to what happened on the mainland, and we cannot control it. It depends on the operation of these farms and the enforcement over there. We know that in many farmlands there's contamination of soil by heavy metal, and that's why we like to visit these places. Any progress? And then on the 1st of August, we enacted the legislation on pesticides, and the CFS has helped us to identify cases of exceedance. If this is still happening, what effective measures do we have to reduce the number of incidents? And also vegetables smuggled into Hong Kong, grown on the mainland but not from registered farms. How did they find their way into Hong Kong? Is there anything you can do to crack down on smuggled vegetables into Hong Kong? And how serious is the situation? Does the Secretary know? regarding the regulation on the content of heavy metals, contaminants in food. It hasn't been amended for decades, and we are very outdated in this regard. We are too lenient when it comes to the amount of heavy metal in our food. I'd like to know when that piece of legislation will be amended. Secretary, visit by legislators to the mainland. I have relayed your wish to the mainland authorities. Whenever there is any outcome, I will let members know as soon as possible. It's true that on the 1st of August, we implemented a check on pesticides, and it's true that some samples were found to have exceeded the limits. Whenever whenever that's found, we must prosecute, and we have to trace the source. If it is confirmed that is indeed from the mainland, we will pass on the report to the main authorities concerned so that they would do their share of tracing on the mainland. I'm sure they will work with us and crack down very strictly on substandard production. Regarding so-called smuggled vegetables, we have enhanced sampling at Mankamto together with our customs and excise colleagues. Heavy metal, yes, this is on our agenda too, but you have to understand that the Center for Food and Safety has a very heavy workload. I'd like to see whether the director or the Center for Food Safety has anything to add. Dr. Tam, thank you, Chairman. We are doing some preparation work. We are discussing with relevant exporters, telling them that we have the intention to revise the legislation, and we're also sampling imports into Hong Kong to know what is the situation like now. I'm afraid, Dr. Tam, I have to stop you because time is up. Ms. Alice Mack. The Secretary's report said that there will be expansion of food safety laboratory of government laboratory. We know that last year the Center for Food Safety had a very heavy workload. A lot of food tests were conducted. Are you going to add manpower to the food laboratory now, even for baby formulas or formula products? Some labeling legislation is proposed. That means more tests for you, and also selling of food, so on and so forth. So will you have more manpower so that the staff don't have to be overburdened? And also revision of fees and charges of services offered by the bureau or director. I'm afraid there may be fee adjustment afterwards. Can you promise that it's just an exercise and you're not going to raise fees and charges? Dr. Koh. First, on the principle. We deploy our manpower resources internally to cope with all the work. Perhaps our respective heads would like to express to you the manpower pressure they face. Dr. Tan, thank you. The expansion is in the provision of laboratory services. We are now working on 65,000 samples on an annual basis. We have no intention to increase that for the time being, and therefore we have no intention to add laboratory manpower for the time being. The second question? Before the review is completed, I cannot give you any conclusion. All right, you're not going to increase manpower because you won't increase the number of samples you test. But what about online selling of food products and also a regular inspection of food items in supermarkets, given that you are receiving more and more complaints? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about online selling of food. Now, there are two aspects to this question. First, we do note that it's now more common for food items to be sold online. So under our risk management unit, we have two groups. One for sampling of food products, and second, the team responsible for import and export. They will keep an eye on online activities. They may include items that may be similar to food but are not actually food, such as Western and Chinese medicine, and that may involve the undesirable advertisements legislation. So, where appropriate, we will have joint actions with the Department of Health. And at Christmas, we through undercover or test buying, we were able to test or to identify oysters.
And with health products or health food products, we have to be very careful with each case. In some cases, they claim to be health products, but they are actually Chinese or Western drugs. And if they are neither of these, we will tackle the cases with the relevant regulations. I understand that the CFS's work is important as a labor organization. We are very concerned whether our workers have the capability to handle the workload. So I hope you can conduct reviews of the manpower requirements. We do need hands in order to conduct inspections. Have you been doing enough inspections? Next, Mr. Gary Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. One about the new agricultural policy, and second about columbaria. And I saw that the government has spent a lot of efforts in coming up with the new agricultural policy, but you seem to have missed something. You are going to help traditional farmers in order to upgrade themselves, for example, in aquaculture, etc. But in between traditional agriculture and high-tech agriculture, there is a stream of there's a sector called low-hazard farming. Or this is different from leisure farming, in fact. But in the reports or paper, I have not seen any measures on low-hazard farming. We do have a lot of low-hazard farmers in the new territories. So, Secretary, what are you going to do for these people? And second, I realize that the government is going to provide 225,000 columbarium niches in the coming years. But for illegal private columbaria, they are still everywhere. We are scrutinizing the private columbaria bill at the moment at LegCo, but before the bill is passed, the customers' interests are put in jeopardy. you should remind. You said you reminded the public to pay attention when they purchase niches from private columbaria, but I've not seen any of those efforts personally during that time. And during this blanket period, these unauthorized private columbaria would advertise their businesses, and this would lead to great risks for the consumers. So what will you do, Secretary? On locust farming, this has not been covered or highlighted in our paper. I guess Mr. Chen was referring to the agricultural park. In this park will be built on government resources, and one of its goals would be to support the development of agriculture in Hong Kong. But we would not rule out other kinds of farming development, including locust farming. If we receive a lot of voices in these areas during the consultation phase, we will certainly consider them. Apart from the agricultural park, we also propose setting up a dedicated fund, and the scope will be wide, and through this fund we will be able to support other types of agricultural developments apart from traditional farming. And for columbaria, we hope we can finish scrutinizing the bill as soon as possible, and so that we can conduct law enforcement effectively. At the moment, we are taking enforcement actions based on the existing legislations, and in terms of promotion, we have ongoing work in terms of green burial and public education on purchasing of private columbaria niches. Earlier, we introduced the private columbaria bill into LegCo. Maybe the public wasn't really aware of that, so we will step up our promotion efforts. Secretary, if we extend our meeting by 15 minutes, is that okay with you? No problem. So the meeting will be extended by 15 minutes. 4 members would like to ask questions. Ms. Claudia Mo. Chairman, if we have to talk about animal welfare from a food safety and environmental hygiene perspective, it's laughable. It's a joke. So, so we have no choice but to continue. The policy address this year did not mention animal welfare at all, but I'm very happy to see that in the paper consulted, in the paper submitted to us today, they have mentioned enhancing animal welfare. But we should not only talk about animal welfare, we should talk about animal rights as well. So my concern is that if the government is trying to ignore it, or the government's mentality is still very basic. My concern is still on Cap 139B of the public health regulations on animal breeders. You said the amendment will be tabled on LegCo this year. But the problem is, basically, you are legalizing private breeding. And you are encouraging private dog breeders. And you said you would inspect these breeders who operate in private residential flats, a lot of animal groups have expressed their concerns. And if you continue to ignore these groups, if you think you are doing something good, then you might actually be hurting these animals. I understand that you have good intentions, but you have to get your priorities right. Can you admit that you have heard the voices of these animal concern groups? You should not encourage these private breeders to proliferate. Can you promise to amend the regulations to satisfy the pleas of these animal groups? Secretary, according to the existing regulations, pet traders do not need to obtain licenses, and as such we are looking at a loophole. Some members of the public and animal groups in Hong Kong propose banning or trading activities of pets. And at the same time, some animal welfare groups understand that some banning or pet trading would be very difficult. So in terms of safeguarding the welfare of animals, we propose regulating all dog trading activities. After the amendment, private dog breeders would not be allowed to operate. And when the regulations are tabled to LegCo, if members have any further suggestions, they are free to raise their views. We have introduced certain restrictions to the regulations so that private breeders and traders can be better regulated. Secretary, can you make it clear whether any new regulations or wording will be introduced which have not been tabled before LegCo before? Perhaps I will invite the director of AFC to address this issue. Thank you very much for the question. You mentioned animal welfare groups. In the past 2 years, we've had constant discussions and consultation, and the views are rather divided. So at this stage, we hope to obtain the support of the majority. Next, Dr. Kenneth Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 points to make. First, on hawker policy. The paper listed the existing hawker policies of Hong Kong, and we have a subcommittee on the development of hawker policy. And over the course of our discussions with the public, we identified a number of problems. So in the coming year, in the coming legislative year, I hope the administration and the secretary can set aside more time to listen to what the public has to say, as well as what some stakeholders from different districts have to say, and hopefully we can get our views. And by the time of the next policy address, they won't be repeating the same points, and perhaps they can think about the licensing system, subsidy schemes, etc. Hong Kong do need to develop local district economies and come up with better policies to support hawkers. We've made some progress on public markets, so hopefully we can do the same for in terms of hawker policy. I think I understand the government is doing consultation on agricultural policy, but since land lots are involved, we have seen cases in which in places like Yuen Long, they are occupying government land and torturing animals in the name of leisure farming. So we have to better monitor the use of land. And in our current, with our current mindset, we have to identify what people are doing with agricultural land. And I understand that the intentions are good, but we have to track any negative impacts as well in terms of agricultural policy. So finally, there is a part in the policy agenda on healthy diets, on the intake of sugar and salt. I think you can tell just by looking at us which of us are overweight or obese. But I think you should provide more information before the legislative phase. Can you provide more statistics on the situation of diets in Hong Kong? A lot of members of the public might like to know more. So can you include this on your agenda when you set up the panel? Can you disseminate more information on healthy eating as well as provide more information to the trade?
Secretary, regarding hawker worker, you may note that there is another subcommittee taking care of this issue. And we have adopted a new model, which I believe is quite effective. We have convened a brainstorming session on this. I think the mode is quite desirable. Most of the participants, both from the official side and from legislators, we spend 2 to 3 hours on a specific subject so that we'll have the opportunity to hear the views of other people, and there can be immediate feedback as well. After we have consolidated views expressed at that forum, we will prepare a paper to cover a number of issues, including that just raised by Dr. Kenneth Chen. We will look beyond street management. We will also take care of local economy and also the livelihood and of small operators, so on and so forth. Farming, of course, we note for sure that for development of agriculture in Hong Kong, I'm afraid your time's up, Secretary. Mr. Lee Cheuk-Yen. Well, we talk about genuine universal suffrage and constitutional reform. When we talked about that, people say we should focus on livelihood. And when we talk about livelihood, our views have fallen on deaf ears. I have said to Mr. Ko that there are over 300,000 people living in Tin Shui Wai, but all wet markets are monopolized by the linkages, with the exception of one being operated by the housing department. So these 300,000 people have to shop in Tuen Mun. They have to pay traffic fares, so on and so forth. The Secretary likes to say that he wants to improve the environment of markets. I think the best approach is to build a new one. Tin Shao Fair, as we all know, is not really very attractive because it is not a tourist attraction. It is not near any wet market. The hawkers want to sell special items, but it is... and the hawkers cannot sell fresh provisions there or meat there. So it's because you don't have any policy to build new markets. Tin Shui Wai residents have to put up with very expensive markets there. And for market or hawker policy, many hawkers of fixed pitches in particular have told us that they have got assistants that have worked for them for many years. Recently, I just went to Chun Wan and I met assistants of these fixed pitch hawkers. They want to take over the operation, but they are not licensed and there is no way they can do it. That hawker bazaar has been in existence since 1980 in Chun Wan, and it's also very popular among residents. If you don't allow the residents to continue the operations, then the hawker bazaar will have to close very soon. So at the end of the day, I have to tell residents that they need to fight for free elections before they can do anything about it. Now, it is not our policy that in new towns we are not going to build new markets, but we have to consider the layout of the new town and whether there are appropriate shopping areas for residents. As for assistance of hawkers, there are 43 streets with fixed pitch hawker areas. We will, as a first stage, we will enhance fire safety. And for pitches that may block the entrance to buildings or that may affect fire escape, we will phase them out first. So once this is completed, we believe there will be vacant pitches available. But of course, we have to discount those that are not really in suitable locations. It will improve the spacing of between pitches, and we will consider whether priority should be given to assistance to these hawkers in the allocation of the stores. All right. You said that it's not that you're not going to build new market, but it depends on the local situation. The population in Tin Shui is over 300,000, but there is no public market run by FEHD there. There is no competition against the ingredient markets. And in Tin Shui Fair is such a big place. Plenty of space available. I don't know where the secretary lives, probably on Hong Kong Island. Do you know Tin Shui Wai is a very vast area? From all the way from Tsim Sha Tsui to Sam Shui Po is just like going from Tin Shui Wai North to Tin Shui Wai South. So the size of Tin Shui Wai is that of a few administrative districts. Yes, as you say, Mr. Lee, given that Tin Shui Wai is so big, even by building one market, there will not be able to achieve the desired results. My turn. In 2007, or rather, we talked about improvements to wet markets, and members also asked about rent increases. I think there is consensus among all parties in this Council that is wet markets should be improved, and whether there is anything wrong with the management. I don't want to criticize colleagues of VHD. Not necessarily. I think when the wet markets want air conditioning, you want the hawkers to foot the bill, whereas we want you to install air conditioning for them first and only consider rent increase when business has improved. So this is an egg and chicken problem. The problem with the FGHD in managing wet markets is the stores are too small, and this is not in line with the current operating environment. In some markets, there are vacant stores. Perhaps you should take this opportunity to provide different sizes of stores. In the past, there was the urban council and there was a market policy to relocate on-street hawkers to wet markets. So in Yongkok market, there used to be 40 stores selling live chickens. A market contractor, a contractor of Link Market would consider the mix of goods available as well. Since you are conducting a consultancy study, you should look at all these issues as a whole. And the paper, para 20 to 21, safety of cooked food, cooked meat. You are going to consult the public in the middle of this year. Of course, talk about regulation of myself and Mr. Vincent Fang's constituencies. We are concerned. We have no intention to block your public consultation. I believe even when we end our term next year, you won't be able to get your bill passed and you may have to wait until the next term of LegCo. If you really want the legislation on regulation of cooked meat to be passed, I'm a bit worried looking at your timetable. If it was a few years ago, there would be plenty of time, but I'm quite worried now that there is a traffic jam here as far as bills are concerned. I hope that before in the course of your consultation, you can meet with representatives of the trade, perhaps myself and Vincent Fang and some other people, to discuss the direction and also the concerns of the industry. You should also commission a consultancy to assess the impact on the business environment. Recently, your policies have conducted similar consultancies. I think it is good. It is good to assess the impacts on the businesses, and I hope you can go to do this. Thank you. The answer to your last question is for sure. We will communicate with the trade to consider the impact on business, on the business environment. And you talk about a rent increase of wet markets. Of course, we will not increase the rent before we start improvements. But if it is the other way around, I don't know when this can be done. So when we propose improvement works, I will consider a rent adjustment mechanism as well. Now, we don't have a second round of questioning. Yes, of course, you you see that there is still time left, but if I allow you and disallow members who raised their hands earlier, it would be unfair. If there is no AB item, I will end the meeting here. I remind you that the meeting schedule for the 10th of February will run from 2 to 5, and we need a quorum of 8, and we're going to meet deputations. Thank you.